Greetings, salutations, dreamers in dreamland. Welcome to the latest edition of Listen to Me, Volume 49. And let me tell you something right now. Today is Wednesday, the 3rd of November, 2021. And it's fight week. It's Canelo Alvarez fight week. And, I'm definitely excited for the big showdown for the 168-pound super middleweight championship of the world between Canelo Alvarez and Caleb Plant. I'm definitely excited about that, and I will be giving you a breakdown and my weekend pick for that fight coming up later this week. However, today I want to talk about something important. I want to talk about a fight that was announced for December the 18th in Miami, and that's a fight between Tommy Fury and Jake Paul. Now, this is a very controversial subject. Jake Paul is a controversial figure, and when Jake Paul first started boxing, I wasn't into it. I wasn't a fan. I didn't like, I was hoping that Nate Robinson was going to kick his ass. That's what I was hoping for. That didn't happen, and Jake Paul has, he's beat up some MMA guys. He knocked out Ben Askren, who was a UFC world champion. He knocked him out in the first round with the first hard shot he hit him with. He also had, he had another fight. He won a decision in his last fight with another former Woodley, another former UFC champion, good fighter, but not a boxer. So Jake Paul has never really been in the ring with a boxer, and he has no amateur background really in boxing whatsoever. He doesn't. He's not a guy that came up winning Junior Olympics or Golden Gloves or state tournaments or anything like that. That's not who Jake Paul is. But Jake Paul is a YouTube star. He is. He's got, millions upon millions of views and millions upon millions of followers, and his channel is strong. And no matter what your opinion or my opinion is of Jake Paul, those are the facts of who he is. The Jake Paul name on its own demands a certain amount of financial respect. That's a fact. And what Jake Paul has mastered is marketing. And this fight being announced for the 18th of December in Miami, I'm actually very excited for this fight. I'm very excited for this fight because, believe it or not, I actually like Jake Paul, his boxing career. I like what he's done so far with boxing, and I'll explain what I mean to you, and I'll explain exactly why. Look, Jake Paul is going to be fighting Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury is 7-0 as a professional boxer. And he's fought, a lot of professional boxers, if you want to call them that. 5 of the wins on Tommy Fury's resume. Tommy Fury's 7-0 with 4 knockouts. 5 of the wins on his resume are against fighters that never won a professional fight. These guys all had 0 wins in the win column. You don't believe me? Check BoxRec. In Tommy Fury's professional debut, he fought a fighter who had 10 wins and over 100 losses. 100 losses. He fought another guy who I think was like 2-10. The only other professional that he fought as a professional boxer who had any wins at all other than a guy who had 100 losses was a guy who was something like 2-10. Now, he did fight one guy, I believe, Jordan Grant. And I think that was in his 6th fight. And Jordan Grant was something like 2-0. And Tommy Fury was, at the time, 5-0. And Tommy Fury won that fight. But it wasn't anything special. It was nothing to write home about. Tommy Fury, yes, he has the Fury family name. And that's name recognition. But as a professional boxer, he hasn't done shit. He hasn't done a fucking thing. And, this notion that, Jake Paul, his resume, is nothing to write home about. Yes, true. But let's keep in mind, Tommy Fury's 7-0 with 4 knockouts. Jake Paul is 4-0 with 3 knockouts. The level of competition that both of these guys have faced is not really much different. Look, a guy that's 10-100, yeah, he has a lot of fights, and he has more experience than he is a boxer. Definitely. But I'd venture to say that Lamar Woodley would probably whip that guy's ass. That's my opinion. I could be wrong, but that's my opinion. And I have my right to it. And there's other people that feel the same way. And look, I'm not going to sit here and argue with, or debate and split hairs about, a journeyman boxer and an MMA fighter who has good striking ability and who's better. That's really not what this is about. What this is really about is sports marketing, because there's more than one battle and more than one fight that Jake Paul has kind of been involved with. Yes, he's involved in this fight with Tommy Fury coming up on the 18th of December in Miami. But there's also been another fight that he's been not really, he hasn't been fighting very actively in, but Clarissa Shields has been taking a lot of shots at Jake Paul. Jake Paul has been yielding a lot of, commentary, both supportive and both taking shots at him. There's been people that have been supporting Jake Paul, say, look, I've seen him train. He trains hard. I train with him every day. He trains hard. And I respect Jake Paul for training hard. And look, I've seen him in the ring. He's not Muhammad Ali. He's not Joe Frazier. But he knows how to throw punches. He does. He can throw hard shots. He has a fair jab. Not a great jab at all, but he knows how to throw it. And he can throw a hard right hand. He can. He definitely can. That's a fact. Ask Ben Askren. He knows how to throw a hard right hand. He knows how to, keep his hands up to stay in a high guard. No, he does not have the head movement of a Mike Tyson. He does not have the shoulder roll of a Floyd Mayweather Jr., but that's not who Jake Paul is. But there's a lot of people that have been taking shots at Jake Paul, and who I want to address right now is Clarissa Shields. Claressa Shields, who can't get a boxing contract in the very country that she's a two-time Olympic gold medalist for. She doesn't know how to market herself, and Jake Paul does. That's the point of this. Now, Jake Paul hasn't really been taking shots at Claressa Shields as much as Claressa Shields has been taking shots at Jake Paul. But after Claressa Shields lost her fight, Jake Paul was, he was quick to throw a little jab of his own, a little verbal shot on a little tweet, out there to, show Claressa Shields up, for lack of a better term. He showed her up with a quick tweet after it wasn't 2 minutes after she lost in the octagon in the PFL last week. Now, that's Claressa Shields' own doing. She started slinging the muck towards Jake Paul. And to be honest with you, she could have done like Amanda Serrano. She could have learned a lot from Jake Paul. Listen, Amanda Serrano in her last fight, fighting on the undercard of Jake Paul, and she'll be fighting on the undercard of Jake Paul again in December. She's been making career-high paydays. Career-high paydays. And, Tommy Fury, he's 7-0 with 4 knockouts. He's going to make more than $1 million in this fight against Jake Paul. Guaranteed purse, more than $1 million. Something to the tune in the area of $1.2 million. And, on a side note, there's $500,000 of Jake Paul's own money has been put up against Tommy Fury. If Tommy Fury beats Jake Paul will give $500,000 of his own purse to Tommy Fury. But if Tommy Fury loses, supposedly he has to change his name legally to Tommy Fumbles for a year. Tommy Fumbles. Because if he loses to Jake Paul, he will be fumbling the ball, for lack of a better term. Having said that, those astronomical numbers for these two guys that are really not great boxers. Tommy Fury's 7-0 with 4 knockouts, and he's only fought one fighter, Jordan Grant, who was 2-0, who had a winning record at the time he fought him. And other than that, he never fought a professional fighter that had a win, and in his debut, he fought a guy with over 100 losses. So Tommy Fury is going to make more than $1 million in one fight. In one fight. And that is more money than Claressa Shields has made in the entire duration of her professional boxing career in boxing purses. Endorsements, PFL, other things. Claressa Shields, maybe she made some money. I'm not saying that she hasn't. But in boxing, as for a boxing purse, Tommy Fury and Jake Paul in one night are going to make more than she has in her entire career. Is that fair? Probably not. For boxing credentials. But is it fair per sports marketing? Absolutely. Claressa Shields does not know how to market herself properly here in the United States of America. I've touched upon this in the past, and I'm not picking on Claressa Shields. This is a fact. This is a fact. Many boxing, pundits, reporters, boxing channels have touched upon this. And Jake Paul he's marketed himself before boxing. He has name recognition that stands on its own from his YouTube following. That's a fact. And Tommy Fury, he was on that show over there in the United Kingdom, Love Island, some kind of reality-based bachelor kind of TV show, or whatever it is, dating show. So Tommy Fury had some name recognition, being being Tyson Fury's little brother, half brother, and also being on the show Love Island. So you have that, and you have the fact that he is a boxer who's 7-0, who's not very good. And Jake Paul, the public demand of the boxing fans and of the public in general here in the United States of America and around the world has been, let's see Jake Paul fight a boxer. Well, Tommy Fury's a boxer, and he's 7-0. Is it against pedestrian-level opponents? Absolutely. But if you take a look at most guys in their first 5 to 10 fights, they're not fighting, these world beaters. They're not fighting world-level competition, and they usually are fighting guys that they should beat. And I'm not here to call anyone, a punching bag or a bum. I don't believe in that. I don't. But the reality of the situation is, when a guy is 10-102 and he's fighting someone in their professional debut, he's there for a reason. I'm not saying he's there to lose. He was picked for a particular reason, to do a particular job. That's the way these things work. That's called building up a fighter. And when building a fighter is done properly, you match a guy up with a few guys that have, upside down records, and then you put him in there with someone who has a record close to 500. And then you put him in there with, a couple of more tune-up fights, and then you put him in there with a world title challenger. A guy who may not have won a world title, but who challenged for one. And then after that success, that level of success, then you put him in there with a former world champion. And then you challenge for a world title. That's the proper way to build a fighter. So there's nothing wrong within a guy's first 5 to 10 fights, him fighting other fighters with losing records and upside down records. There's nothing wrong with that. But there does come a point where you've got to put up or shut up. And that point for Tommy Fury has come. Look, in Tommy Fury's last fight, he fought Jake Paul's sparring partner, a guy who had professional boxing experience, but I believe at the time only had one other fight. And it was something like 2 or 3 years previous to his fight with Tommy Fury. And he was not really a boxer by trade, this gentleman. He was a mixed martial artist by trade. A combat sports guy, not necessarily a boxer. And Tommy Fury, he was getting touched by this guy. And this guy was not really a light heavyweight. He was about 5 inches shorter than Tommy Fury. And, Tommy Fury was, in shape like a boxer, not necessarily carrying any extra weight around his midsection. This other gentleman, he did not have the same physique. He was definitely, probably someone who should have fought at 154 pounds, who was fighting at 175. So he had a little extra weight, but this guy was touching Tommy Fury in the face with a stiff right hand on more than one occasion. So Tommy Fury has not exactly proven his worth or proven that he's a world beater, yet he's going to make more than $1 million fighting Jake Paul. Marketing. Sports marketing. Marketing yourself. Building a brand. Now, Claressa Shields, she has a brand, but she also has a reputation and a proven track record of rubbing everyone the wrong way. Almost everyone the wrong way. And not really performing and garnering the viewership that would, really afford the astronomical financial demands that she puts forth the boxing table when a boxing contract is being made. Listen, I was not in the room. I was not in the room with these negotiations. However, the news of the negotiations when Eddie Hearn offered Clarissa Shields a career high payday for the Savannah Marshall fight, and Clarissa Shields wanted more money. Said it wasn't enough. Said it was disrespectful when it was a career high payday. If someone offers you a career high payday, I don't know how that could be disrespectful. That really doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And if you look at Eddie Hearn's track record, he's been, Katie Taylor, Terry Harper, Chantel Cameron, just to name a few, Natasha Jonas. He's paid all these girls career high paydays. He's gotten all these girls the spotlight. Look, at the end of the day, the proof is in the pudding and facts are facts. And the truth is the truth. Clarissa Shields is currently, she just got her face mashed last Wednesday in the PFL. Why was she in an octagon? To make money. Economics. Because she couldn't get the kind of money she wanted boxing here in the United States of America. She has since signed that contract with Sky Sports. I don't know how many fights it's for, with Boxer over there in the United Kingdom. But a two-time Olympic gold medalist from the United States of America is signed to a UK television deal and a UK promoter. This is very bizarre, highly irregular and not the norm. And at the end of the day, the reason is because Claressa Shields is not necessarily what you would call a marketable or likable person here in the United States of America. Now, I wish her all the best over there in the United Kingdom, and I've got to be honest, that Twitter battle she has with Jake Paul, she should stop, she should cut it out, and she should learn from Jake Paul. Watch, look, listen, keep the mouth closed and learn. Because Jake Paul is making the kind of money that Claressa Shields would love to make boxing, but can't. I repeat, a two-time Olympic gold medalist, maybe the most accomplished female boxer in the world today, maybe the most accomplished boxer, American boxer in the world today, can't get a lucrative deal here in the United States of America. But Jake Paul, a YouTuber, and Tommy Fury, a UK television star, is going to make more than $1 million in the boxing ring on Showtime, the same network that decided, we're good on Claressa Shields. We don't want her. From Claressa Shields' own admissions, they cut her purse in half from something like $250,000 to $125,000. And when she said no, they cut her and they said, goodbye. We don't want nothing to do with you. Yet Tommy Fury and Jake Paul will both make more than $1 million each. And Tommy Fury, who is not a good boxer at all, and who's not from the United States, is going to make more than $1 million on Showtime pay-per-view, the same network that let Claressa Shields go. That story tells itself, my friends. So again and again, whether you're a friend, whether you're a family, whether you're a fan or a foe, I love each and every one of you, but not nearly equal. That's just the way it works. Until we meet again, my friends. Peace.